In this movie, we discuss our font spacing options. In CSS, we have two types of character spacing. We have letter spacing and word spacing. Now, of course, these are quite a bit different because of what they end up affecting. First of all, letter spacing allows us to control how much space is in between each letter of a selected element. Word spacing allows us to affect the space between each word in a selected element. Now, both types are going to contribute to the overall tone or density of our page. Now, it will do this by controlling how close or how far apart our text is, thus making it either heavier or lighter in tone. Now, being able to do this is very, very interesting because that's a good level of control that we can have. And it's even more interesting to see it well applied to web design. Now, our ability to do this comes over from our traditional print design, because letter spacing in CSS is very similar to our tracking and kerning in the world of print design. In a nutshell, tracking is the amount of space between letters across a selection of text, while kerning refers to the amount of space between two specific characters. CSS letter spacing allows us to do both of these things depending on how large our selection is. So we can use the span tag to select two letters to kern, or we can select more letters, words, or paragraphs to set tracking. Now, if you are interested in trying to use your letter spacing most effectively in terms of design, it may be a good idea to invest some time to look at tracking and kerning examples in your graphic design literature. Word spacing can also be applied to a low level, but it doesn't make sense to apply it to a region that's smaller than 2 words because it adjusts the space between words. Now, with that in mind, let's go ahead and take a look at these in action in our project. Now, of course, before we do that, let's go ahead and take a look at the property here. And if you look at what we have here with our letter spacing, we've got letter dash spacing, and then word spacing is word dash spacing. So we're going to be able to use any value here that we want to. And I'm going to jump over into my CSS here. And I'm going to add in some letter spacing to my different tutorial headers. So I'll do letter dash spacing and set that to 0.5 em. I'm going to go ahead and copy that and then paste that in for each one of my headers. I'll go ahead and save that and then jump over into my HTML document here. And I'll scroll on down so I can see all the tutorial headers here, or at least some of them. And I'll refresh my browser and we see that it spreads out the words. So this is actually making it really stand out so that we're saying these are the tutorials that we actually have. Pretty cool, pretty cool. Now for the next thing, we're just going to set one up for fun here. And then we're actually going to delete it, so it doesn't matter where I place it. I'll just go ahead and put it down here at the bottom. And for this, I want to use the P tag to select all paragraphs. And I'm going to set the word spacing here to begin with to -1 em. I'll save that, jump over here and refresh. And as we can see, instantly we have a different tone because we have overlapping text. This just doesn't make any sense. Why in the world would we want to do this? Well, really, we never would want to go that far with it, but if we did something a little bit more controlled, we may end up having something else that we like. So here is a negative 0.3 em. And again, that's actually probably a little bit too close, but it may end up looking good on things like pull quotes. Now probably what makes a little bit more sense is if instead of doing a negative, we do a positive. So if I do a positive 0.3 em, save that, and refresh, notice how we have a little bit more space between each word. So feel free to experiment with that word spacing. It's pretty handy and it's good to have, although it doesn't get used all that often. I'm going to go ahead and delete that from our style sheet. And I'll go ahead and save that and then refresh my browser so we can see the difference again. Now just remember that our ability to adjust both our letter and word spacing is very powerful, but it could easily hurt our design. So let's just keep that in mind and be aware of that when we're using these properties. So that concludes our look at font spacing.